Welcome back to Children of Misery. While world building for this project, I looked into a lot of resources on city planning and design. One of the biggest parts of any city is transportation and how people go about from place to place. It's the circulatory system for a functional city that ensures people, money, and goods are all kept flowing and functional. I knew early on that I wanted trolleys in this setting, partially for my love of San Francisco's historic trolleys. Aesthetically, they're a modern look but with a touch of old class, and they're just a nice mix of modern metalwork and traditional woodwork. Misery is also a city that prides itself with being at the forefront of technology and progress, so it made sense that they would want a public transportation system that was both flashy and functional. While designing the trolleys on stream, I looked at a lot of historic photos and tried to find elements that I thought would work for my trolleys. I knew I wanted open ends to allow quick access on and off the trolley. There's also nice wide steps on all sides, but because it's dark, gloomy, and fairly rainy most of the time, I included an enclosed middle section to keep people dry and give them a place to sit for long treks. I also extended the roof out a bit to cover those on the ends. Someone on stream suggested rain guards for the roof, which I thought made perfect sense, and it also provided a nice sad-looking droop to the ends that fit the city's theme very well. The sides of the trolley have some shallower steps and a brass bar spanning the side length. This is for people to hold onto the outsides of the trolley if it's very full. On the top of the trolley we have an intricate crown molding metalwork vent. This provides airflow to the interior, which is especially important for warmer weather. And finally, the signage for where the trolley is going. I imagine these signs being color-coded to match the line that they're on. On the subject of color, each line also has a few yellow trolleys that are for students only, so that they can have safe, reliable transport. This is reminiscent of the classic American school bus, which doesn't really fit my city's Gothic European style, but hey, who can resist a cute yellow trolley? I'm pretty happy with the final design, and sort of like how a bicycle is human-powered transportation, these trolleys are magic-powered. I imagine them working by an operator inputting a small but steady stream of magic into the car, which turns the inner workings and makes it move along the track. Misery also has twin rivers that run parallel through the city and out to the sea. Being a coastal city with an island, water is an extremely important mode of transportation. I was very interested in making a steamboat ferry that could commute tourists and citizens back and forth from the mainland to the carnival dock. In the first drawing I made, I was going for a smaller craft that worked more like a traditional boat, but with a more flat, open layout. But given the amount of people in the city, this seemed impractical compared to having a larger vessel with more power that could take a good-sized crowd each trip. As I researched these ferries, I learned a lot about their design and function, like how they're symmetrical and have two piloting towers, depending on which direction they're headed. This is good because it means these ferries don't have to contend with turning around, just a straight shot there and back. I toyed around with the wheel that drives the ship being internal or external. Ultimately, chat liked the outside wheel better aesthetically, but as a compromise I added a half cover that can be decorated. I wanted this to be uncharacteristically colorful to go with the carnival, but borrow shapes and designs from the trolley to still fit with the rest of the city. It's essentially a floating house. I had a long debate as to whether these would be magic-powered or steam-powered by a furnace. It's much harder to push something through the water than it is to push a cart on some tracks. So it was a very different conversation with the ferries than with the trolleys. I ended up landing on a rule that will drive my design choices for world building going forward in this regard. If it's a waste of human resources, then it must be machine-powered. And what I mean by this is, yes, a high-powered mage could power a steamboat all by themselves, or a team of magic users could run a steamboat with solely magic. But magic like that takes skill and practice, and there's no way that a level 10 wizard is going to be a steamboat captain. Magic can be used to light and help maintain the furnace, but ultimately this steamboat is coal-powered, driving the pistons up and down to turn the water wheels. With my modes of transport in place, it was time to plan the routes and make a map that my players can use as a reference when they're traveling through the city. There are several loops and lines that are all interconnected in a network of tracks. A few notable things I added in the city's layout for realism. These tracks don't go through every district. Many of the outskirts have limited options, and trolleys only travel along the main highways, so even if you get to where you're going, you may still have to do a bit of walking. There's also one bridge in the north that's too old and too thin to support tracks, so until the city decides to update it, they just have to work with what they have. Additionally, the district where the Titan Skull resides is owned by the Church of the Dreamer, It is treated as holy ground, and thus no tracks are allowed to be built in this district. I wanted to include some important landmarks, so there's a few small symbols and later labels for each of them. I added diamonds along each of the routes to indicate the major stops along the way. With those dots, you can also estimate your travel time between districts, which will be very useful to my players. Ultimately, this is going on the back pages of a tourist brochure, so that it has an in-universe function as well. The final document will also include some history and cultural background for Misery, as well as a cheat sheet for my players on how to roll and do combat in our tabletop system. I really enjoyed working on this aspect of my fantasy city. It's just a nice detail that makes it feel that much more lived in. Let me know in the comments about any public transit you have in your own worlds, or just your favorite fantasy transport in media. Thanks so much for watching. I've got a lot more videos in the works, so don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that clock tower notification bell. Join me every other Sunday for a new live stream, and I'll see you in Misery.